We all know the picture. We've all seen the picture of him praying and kneeling there in the snow, haven't we? But this takes place around the same time, and he has an angelic encounter. An angel comes and shows him that the United States will go through 3 dangers. But he comes out of all 3 of them. And I believe the first one was the American Revolution that he was going through at that point. The second was the Civil War, because he talks about how he sees the word union and standard. And then the third one, I believe, is World War I and World War II. Because y'all, I don't know if God's going to get us out of the rest of it. If we're not faithful, if we don't stand with Israel, if we don't stand and do what we're supposed to. Who's ever read this book? The Vision by Dave Wilkerson.
I've heard of Dave Wilkerson, but I've never read that book.
Dave Wilkerson is probably one of the greatest prophetic voices we've had in our generation. How many of y'all ever read Cross and Switchblade? Or how many of you remember the movie with Pat Boone and Eric Estrada? Come on. Yeah. I was going through this. I found this yesterday. I forgot I even had it. But I highlighted some of the things that he prophesied. This is in 73, y'all. And he talks about, there's a few things I really wanted to highlight. I highlighted because I want you to hear this. Because we don't think that this stuff can go on like this. He talks about the increase of natural disasters. How many know we got that? The increase. He said that things that used to be on the 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock hour on TV would be moved to the family hour. How many know we've seen that? You can't turn on TV at 7 o'clock and not see something, that you don't really want to watch anymore. Matter of fact, and now we've got this whole thing with cuties from Netflix that's just taken, I saw a while ago, $9 million in subscription Netflix has lost in the last 2 days because of this one movie.
They need to lose the whole network.
That's it.
Yeah, they need to lose the whole, yeah. Because they support a lot of stuff they don't need to be supporting.
See, he talks in here, and the number one temptation for the last Christian will be prosperity. The Bible warns that in the last days, many Christians will be half-hearted, rich, prosperous, and in need of nothing. There's nothing more evil or sinful. There's nothing evil or sinful in being prosperous and successful. Matter of fact, most of the patriarchs are. But what's going to happen is we're going to be afflicted by prosperity and tested by it through poverty. Isn't that crazy? Marijuana will be legalized. In 73, he said it. And he makes this statement, y'all. And when I read this, I thought about California right now. Listen to what he said. He said, anything we cannot handle, we legalize. If we can't handle it, we make it legal. Because we don't know what else to do with it. How many of y'all saw the law they just passed in California 2 weeks ago? That now a 25-year-old can now rape a 14-year-old.
I saw that. That's just
and he not have to register as a sex offender.
I saw that.
Y'all, we living in rough times.
That's a transsexual Satanist.
The transsexual Satanist, I said that the other day. I read the article. Her whole thing was F the police. That was her slogan. And she said she did it to prove a point. And got the nomination. The head of the Republican Party called to congratulate her.
I can't see how Satanist, that's a church, gonna be out to help people.
Well, here's the other reason. We live in an era now. How many know he said there'd be great deception taking place? How many know we're living in that time of great deception now more than ever? Marijuana legalized. I said that. He said there's an hour coming where there'd be persecution upon the church like never before. He said that homosexuality would invade the church house and be accepted. I had it marked, y'all, because it floored me when I read what he said. Because he said that, he said in 73, he saw the rise of churches accepting homosexuality and lesbianism and ordaining people. Like, this is 73. We weren't thinking stuff like this then, y'all.
Well, I'm gonna tell you like it is. We gotta love the person. We gotta love the sinner. We ain't gotta love the sin, but we ain't got to bow down to a movers. We ain't got to approve of their lifestyles.
Oh, I know how this is. This is 73. This is
47 years.
47 years ago that he wrote this. And we saw things what? Go to the bathroom. Go this one. Go back that way.
Brother Jason, I got a look at the house by that Nikki
No, you're gonna sit down. No, you're gonna sit down until she gets back.
and he was, when he wrote that book, David Wilkerson was, there with him and
Right.
stuff. And I think I remember reading it in there that David said that a lot of the businesses and stuff would leave New York.
He said that, there's actually anybody said he prophesied, I think in 83 or 84, that terror would strike New York City. And it would wreak havoc with the businesses. But then it would spark the next Great Awakening.
And he talked about the homeless people. The homelessness would be just a lot worse now than it was even back then. I don't know what year that was, but it was bad back then.
Remember how we talked about Elijah confronting Jezebel? Dave Wilkerson stood on Wall Street and prophesied and told them they had to repent, that things were fixing to get rough. We miss prophetic voices like this now. I mean, we talked about it the other night, and, it slapped me in the face when I got home, Wayne, after we had that whole discussion. Where are the preachers in the pulpit prophesying anymore? They're calling us to repentance. And we know that ought to be our job.
They brought out on the news today that Obama has got a contract with Netflix about making movies, and I don't know if they were saying, I was wondering if he was involved in making that movie Cuties, so he's making multi-millions of dollars
Right.
with Netflix, be making these documentary type movies. And he may be over it, who knows? It wouldn't put it past him,
That wasn't on CNN news.
Somebody said not long ago, I think last week I heard say, that what's about to take place, this whole thing in California that's going on, is because we're about to see some things exposed.
Well, I think the
And
sex,
the high level officials are gonna be, yeah.
Well, I can't help but wonder, we've talked about Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, and then the whole state of California is on fire. Who's to say that's not God's wrath for the way that they are living, doing, and promoting stuff? Me and Peggy talked about that today,
and also.
It may be God showing them that, look, you can't continue to do this,
Right. I think he's trying to wake them up.
It's like I said before, I don't necessarily say that God caused it, but he's wanting to use it to get attention,
Like I get stoned back-to-back things.
He's giving people a chance to turn to him.
When you look at the hurricanes on this coast,
Yeah,
I mean,
back-to-back.
there's 5 or 6 more out there right now. They come in every week. He's trying to wake the people up, and like I said the other day, preachers are not getting in the pulpit and saying that God's trying to get their attention. I think they're afraid to do it. I heard we watched that Newsmax and there was one guy on there says, I'm not going to say it, but he says these fires and everything. He said that could be God trying to get everybody's attention. He said I'm not going to say that it is, but it could be. And he's the only one I've seen on all the news that I watched that said anything about it. That God may be trying to get our attention.
After Katrina, Pat Robinson said something about Katrina, the Lord let that happen, and boy, everybody got mad and fussed about him saying that, but he said that the Lord might have been using that or letting that happen for New Orleans to people to wake up,
I believe it is. I believe he's trying to wake us up.
I want to read something right here that I read tonight while we were sitting. This is between the lesson tonight and the flood. But anyway, it says the story of Noah.
I'll just take them
Earth was
back.
no longer the perfect paradise.
I will, but it's kind of hard for me to right now. I'm sorry.
Earth was no longer the perfect paradise that God had intended. It is frightening to see how quickly all of humanity forgot about God.
Amen.
And incredibly, in all the world, only one man and his family still worship God. That man was Noah. Because of his faithfulness and obedience, God saved him and his family from a vast flood that destroyed every other human being on earth. This section shows us how God hates sin and judges those who enjoy it. If that don't nail it down to the very teeth, you know, that jumped out at me when I read that tonight.
I heard a preacher say something the other day, I had never heard him say it before, which made good sense, by talking about these people that believe that these abortionists that goes to church and all is gonna make it to heaven. He said there's gonna be 60 million saints standing there at the door not letting them in. And that's the saints of the aborted babies that have been murdered. Just in this country, this ain't talking about the rest of the world. 60-something million saints gonna be standing there to keep these abortionists out of heaven. And that made sense to me more than anything I've heard in a while.
And going back to what you was talking about earlier, Brother Jason, about the sex trafficking and child pornography, I believe that's a problem that's always been here, but the thing about it is, there's parents that's got children as young as Gracie out there or younger, and they let them get on Facebook, MySpace, and all this stuff, and that makes them pray for people just to come in and snatch up like that. That's why it's more common now. Because the internet is a lot more technology in the internet now than it was years ago.
And you got people that won't, they don't wanna look at it like we look at it, like that they need to be careful. Everybody thinks, oh, there's nothing wrong with it.
I know.
You got too many people that wants to look at it like that.
These grown men, they have ways of persuading.
Exactly.
And here's what's happened, y'all. We have doctors and counselors and that coming out and saying, this is perfectly normal. I mean, they come out now and say that pedophilia is a normal way of life.
Well, there's a lot of pedophiles in the school system.
I go back to what Jesus said. He said, if anybody hurts one of these, they might as well have a millstone wrapped around their neck. Because they're innocent. And you want to talk about, we talk about the 60 million saints waiting at the gate. You know, how many knows abortion is nothing new, y'all? They were killing kids back in Bible days.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, matter of fact, that's what they said. They sacrificed them to the god Molech. Go ahead, Bill. You got that, y'all, come on.
I just better keep my mouth shut.
No, come on. You got that look on your face. Go ahead and say it.
Well, all I'm gonna say is, this may be wrong, you know, and I hope I don't ever have to find out, but if they touch one of mine, they ain't gonna have to worry about trying.
Well, and you
So I'm
know,
gonna take care of it.
well, do you know even, I don't know the law here in Mississippi. Sit down. Yeah. Alabama now has it where they are chemically castrated sex offenders. I don't know if Mississippi has that set up yet. You know. And I'm thinking, you know, I don't know if chemical castration is really,
I've heard about it.
if it'll work, be the answer or not, you know. Because I might be the Wayne. I got news for you. I may be small, I may be wiry, but if something happens to one of them two, you better believe somebody better be calling Virginia. I better be having some bail money. Somebody better be finding me.
You know, the thing about it, a lot of the ones now that
We
are,
cut off the picture.
that are,
Light came off, so I don't know what I got. Maybe they paired.
No, they still
We're
going.
still going, okay.
But going back to them always killing babies, well, you know, baby Jesus, you know, when baby Jesus was born, the king had all the male babies.
Well, same thing with Moses,
right,
remember?
exactly.
And how many knows nothing's changed?
The thing about it though, to me, is back in them days, okay, like say for instance, Moses, all